Hey, Brian King here again with my good friend and colleague, Debra Sunderland. It's been a while since our first video. Hopefully you had a chance to watch it and enjoy it. If not, give it a view. Today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, which is something that the research has showed us is more important than IQ, more important than the letters after your name, and in many cases, more important than who you know in terms of what makes people successful, whether you're an individual or you're a team. Yes. And that thing was discovered by a gentleman named Daniel Goleman, G-O-L-E-M-A-N. And that thing is referred to as emotional intelligence. Now, this doesn't mean we're going to get all touchy-feely and go Oprah on you just because we're talking about emotions, okay? So stay engaged with us here. What it refers to generally is being tuned in to the emotional content of your experience. Because there are a lot of bosses that are all data. Give me the numbers. I don't care about anything else. What are the numbers? And unfortunately, there's more to it than that, because at the end of the day, no matter how much you want to deal with the facts and the numbers, you're leading people. Mm-hmm. And people have emotional experiences. They have responses to what you do. And those emotions are relevant to their job performance. Mm-hmm. It's relevant to your ability to ignite their passion and motivate them with more than fear. So if you don't believe us, go out there and Google it. You know, we're not going to sit here and bore you with statistical data. It's out there. Mm-hmm. Take out your smartphone and Google emotional intelligence research, and you'll find this stuff. Mm-hmm. So what are Debra and I going to give you? We're going to give you some anecdotes, some insights that come from our work with the corporate world and how we have seen this proven to be true and how you can benefit from investing yourself and becoming more proficient in emotional intelligence yourself. So let's jump right into the conversation. Debra, my good friend and colleague as always, tell us a recent example of how you saw the presence of or the lack of emotional intelligence hard.
Well, perfect timing, Brian, because I do coach a group of 15, two different teams on a company, as well as their leaders. And I happened to experience that this week, where a VP leader is unwilling to acknowledge, even when he's not feeling well emotionally, but that comes out as a sideway effect to everyone else. He pushes it out to everyone if he's having a bad day, so people aren't afraid to come to him. They're afraid to talk to him about concerns, questions, thoughts that they have about an account. Even his colleagues sense it. And it's grown so big that people have learned to kind of walk around him and dance on eggshells. And what the long term of this is that people don't end up staying in his department. New people come in, they don't get help, and then they're like, oh no, why am I here? So I'm coaching these teams that report to him who are sad that they've joined this company and this is their leader and they have nowhere to go. They're having to learn things on their own. They're having to live tiptoe-like. If I do the wrong thing, I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. And as we know, living with fear shuts the brain down. Productivity does not happen. So in the end, results for the business, profits do not happen. Money is lost. Clients aren't getting taken care of well. And that's exactly what's happening here. And then the other part of it is the leaders above him, because he does do some things well. It's like the elephant, the big white elephant that's ignored. And if we cover over that, it still comes out, yet they try to keep him because he does do many good things, but the actual address of what he's not acknowledging, his emotion that's coming out sideways and how it's affecting everyone. Mm-hmm.
Now, when I look at Goleman's work, he identified there are 5 specific characteristics of somebody with emotional intelligence, especially in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And what you just described, one of the first things that comes to me is self-regulation. Mm. You know, you have these moods. Something happened to you, you're nervous, you're angry. Are you able to monitor it and manage it? And basically what you just described in this gentleman is No, he can't modulate it or manage it. He just has it.
Yes.
If he has anxiety, he wears it on his sleeve and he gets everybody else worried.
Yes, absolutely.
Upset, he can't compartmentalize it or say, well, you know what? That's a separate issue.
Mm-hmm.
I've got something else to focus on right now, and that's where my energy is going to go. Instead, he allows it to infect his entire mood and his entire day.
Yes.
That's a lack of emotional intelligence. People
Yes.
that are much more self-regulated, and another characteristic, self-aware, are not only conscious of their own feelings, but they're also conscious of how those feelings might impact other people's experiences.
Absolutely.
Those
Absolutely.
right there that this gentleman unfortunately just doesn't get.
Yes. And I think you might even want to say the empathy is missing. That's another piece to having emotional intelligence. He doesn't see that that his team is struggling, and now they're living in some of the fear, the fallout of whatever he's putting out there. And I think emotional intelligence is, you can sense it even though someone doesn't say it. Emotionally aware, being aware that something's going on and calling it out is perfectly good and well done. And still in our corporate world, we tend to not allow that. Oh, we can't talk about feelings, or oh, we can't discuss that. But leaving it in the white room, the white elephant sitting in the middle, causes much more destruct. So growing in emotional intelligence and naming it, and how can that be brought out? How can you help someone be aware? How can you show the effects of that? And how do you grow forward in that as a team, instead of listening to just that emotion or hiding that person in it, is the other flip side of that.
Absolutely. I'm going to have a little human moment here and share with people that if you're hearing some barking in the background, it's my puppies, because one of my boys is coming home from school and they're very happy. So if that was an elephant in the room for people, I wanted to call it out.
Good. Thanks for calling that out.
Absolutely. The empathy piece also speaks to something that in some regards can't really be taught, because there's an instinct that comes along with empathy. Being able to sense a certain tension in the room, or being able to read somebody's nonverbal cues and realize something's happening here that's not being spoken, and maybe I need to create a space where people are comfortable bringing it up.
Yes. And I think even as a coach, I've noticed if I say it, if I sense something, even in a group setting, because they're not used to talking about it in this company about feelings. But if I sense that you're nervous or stressed as an overall, there's kind of this is a place where I can talk about it now. This is a place where it's okay. And then what happens is we learn to breathe together. That's a practice that we put together, and talk about those feelings or thoughts that are going down a path that's causing some emotion that might be taking over them. It releases that for them. And the emotions usually last, they say, 9 to 20 seconds if you feel it. But if you push it down and push it aside and pretend it's not there, it comes out ugly. So what we talk about in my team, on our teams, is to let's address it and let's talk about it. And I tell you, every time we get together now, because they know it's a space to do that, there is more freedom, there is more joy, there is more productivity, there is more communication that's gone deeper between the teams. And so it's become a very good place for them.
Well, it sounds like you were talking about using the skill or the characteristic that is social skills, which is what do we need to do to manage the relationships or manage what's happening between us. And when you invite everybody to do a breathing exercise together, when you set up the rules for how do we address these things? How do we talk to one another? Knowing that relationships take nurturing, they take management. You just don't say, well, those are the rules. If you don't like, get out. You realize that you need to care, to care about it, nurture it. That's something, unfortunately, that's missing in too many places these days.
Yes, and unfortunately, I think many of us have grown up coming to school and then on to work is doers instead of beers. And so we aren't allowed, quote unquote, to show up in our being and just get the work done, as you had said. Well, that being, whether that place is of joy, which could also be a really great thing, creativity or fear or tension, gets pushed all around to the places it doesn't need to be to actually help a company. And so to not be afraid of someone being fearful, to not be afraid of someone being angry, but to bring that out is only going to bring deeper connection and clarity within the teams and the companies. It's only going to grow them.
There's only one characteristic that we haven't hit yet, and that characteristic is motivation.
Yes.
Another technical moment. See, and this is wonderful. I have the dogs. Deborah had the phone, but this is okay though, because these are human things. We can get all upset about it and say, "Oh man, that really stinks. That shouldn't happen," but it does. Things happen, and your ability to just kind of roll with it, go with the flow, be able to determine what's worth my attention, what isn't. Instead of being reactive.
Yes.
With emotional intelligence, don't walk around reacting to the world.
Right.
They choose their response.
They choose their response. They choose their action.
And in fact, that really speaks to the motivation piece that I was just getting to. The other characteristic we haven't addressed yet is that they're not only conscious of what drives them, what are they passionate about, but they get to know the people that are around them and get a sense of what drives this person. What does this person care about? Because somebody that's really egocentric would think that, well, this is what motivates me. I want the big house and the big car, and anybody else that doesn't think this way is stupid. That's not emotionally intelligent. It is when you realize we're all different. We all have the thing that lights us up. And if you know that about the people that you lead, and you can attach that to company goals in some way, now you can light their fire whenever you need to.
Yes.
Hitting them right where they live. Would you agree with that, Deborah?
Absolutely. In fact, that's what I coach on, is leaders and even teams discovering within one another what are their passions, their strengths, their creativity. Maybe they're not, it could be the same role, person sitting one here, person sitting next to them, they have the same role, but within those roles, someone might be better apt to go after something in a different way because they're made differently, they have a passion, and they would be like, yeah, I want to pick that up. That's my cup of tea. I want to do that. And to really understand who's sitting next to you, who's working with you as a person, and what really, like you said, lights their fire. And then it takes something off of you that maybe you're like, oh, I hate doing this, or this isn't my cup of tea, even though, yes, we all have to do those things. But if you can really push it with someone or give it to someone, they also feel like, wow, I'm being noticed. Someone knows that I can take this on, and they feel encouraged by that and trusted. They feel like, yeah, my teammate feels like I'm trustworthy.
Now, let me talk about, because Deborah and I are in slightly different niches. Deborah does a lot of coaching. I do a lot of marketing. But emotional intelligence works just the same in marketing. When you're talking about writing a newsletter, an article that you send out to a list of subscribers, or you put a post on Twitter or Facebook, it's still that same consideration of how am I going to impact the person that's reading this? It's not just how do I get them to buy stuff, That is definitely one goal in the business world. But the goal, first and foremost, is how do I add value to this person's life? How do I give them something they can use? If that leads to a sale, great. If it doesn't, then I've still done something meaningful.
Yes, absolutely.
Feel heard. Because if people out there are chattering on social media saying there isn't enough of this, or how come nobody will solve this problem for me, and then I go and solve that problem in the form of an article or a product or whatever I'm able to find, that I've just shown to them that not only did I hear them, but I care enough about them to do something about it. And that is a sign of emotional intelligence from a marketing perspective.
Absolutely. And I believe it kind of goes to the whole servant leadership. in a certain sense. If you're
Yeah, we
able
talk about that a
to,
lot.
yeah, if you're able to go before someone and really look at who they are, what they really need, what they really want, put yourself aside first. And sometimes that's assessing their emotional state. Sometimes it is the reading of that. Sometimes it's the words that they speak. In fact, I want to share, that's why I became hugely successful my first year in my own company, is even though I might not have known the other person on the other phone and it was a brand new client, if I could even sense something, sadness, a kind of a pause, a thinking going on, I might ask, you know, how's your day, or what's happening for you today? And many times I would hear from someone, oh, well, my husband is in the hospital right now. He just had open heart surgery. You know, and for me to care about what they were concerned with at that moment, and this goes across the board, whether it's internal or external in a company or a friend, however it might be, someone paying attention to what someone's saying and being heard on that alleviates so much of that aloneness in their feeling, their pain, whatever it is. And that's why I was sent clients, not because I was the smartest person or I had the best selling marketing tool on the planet. It's because people knew they could trust me, building that trust as to who that person is. And I think that goes a long way.
As you know, I have a social work background. I've been trained in, clinical therapy. I've done that for many, many years now. And that serves me tremendously in the same context that you were referring to. Because there are people that will call me and it'll be nothing coaching or therapeutically related, but I can sense something's up. They sound a little choked up, or there's just a little tension in their voice. And I'll ask them, this is one of my favorite questions. I'll ask them, is there something you're not telling me that would be helpful for me to know?
Yes.
And then that opens the door to saying, put words to what's happening with you. And they'll say, well, something's going on, but it's not really related to what we're talking about. Then I'll ask, but is it impacting your ability to focus on what we're here to talk about? Yeah, as a matter of fact, it is. And I say, well, if you're comfortable talking about that with me, why don't you just kind of get it off your chest a little bit, clear the air, relieve some of that tension, and then maybe it'll help us move forward. And if they're comfortable with that, I give them that space. If they're not comfortable with that, we either talk about it a little bit, or I tell them, hey, let's reschedule. You go and take care of yourself. So that you can be present. You can give your all to it.
Yes.
And again, that's an emotional intelligence piece of empathy, self-regulation, encouraging that person. And this is another key. How do you facilitate emotional intelligence in someone else? If that person is having some difficulty regulating their own emotions, and you realize they can't do it in this context between the two of us, maybe they need some space. So you encourage them to go and do that. And then come back to the moment when you're a little bit more clear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. I must say, not only do I coach the teams, I coach one-on-one personal development within the teams. And I have to say, because they come to such a tense space, and not given that freedom, as you say, to kind of find a place to clear themselves or maybe figure it out for themselves what's going on, or with someone else, they get all bottled up. And many men and women come to me, and once we start talking, there's this huge release where they even actually start crying. And it is such, it's a good thing that they're getting it out, but it saddens me because it's in the workplace that they work 40, 50, 60 hours a week under these conditions. And so I'm trying to teach them how to, in their space, be who they are, and express and also notice themselves, notice the other person, and call out what needs to be said or feel what they need to feel, that feelings are okay. The emotion of it is okay. Because some of them are even getting sick. 2 of them are actually physically sick from holding in their emotions.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because one thing I want to put out there for all the business leaders that are listening to this is to believe that vulnerability is unprofessional
Mm.
is absolutely foolish. That is old school thinking, that is dysfunctional upbringing, and that is simply not the way to bring the best out of your people. You need to allow them to be human beings. I'm not saying that you are inviting drama or hysterics into your workplace. What you are inviting are people to express those moments of overwhelm, of feeling hurt, of feeling frustrated, and giving them a forum to be able to speak up, get it out, process it, heal it, and move forward. Because if you think by instructing them to keep it in that it's not affecting their productivity, you're lying to yourself. So you need to create a space where it's okay to be human and people will be supported. Because I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, the people that are supporting your company are the customers that are human beings. They don't want to deal with people that think they have to be stone cold all the time. Because I don't know about you, but I can call up customer service or whatever, and I know whether I'm talking to a human being or whether I'm talking to someone who's reading me a script, because they sound like an emotionless robot.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't feel the same kind of rapport with those people than I do with the people that are willing to joke with me a little bit.
Yes.
I mean, there have been some customer service people that I wanted to stay on the phone with because they were so fun to talk to that even when the problem was solved, I was thinking about, man, if you were on the other side of the country, I'd take you out for coffee.
Yes. Absolutely.
And that's what the culture needs to be more about these days,
Right.
is the option to bring all of yourself to the workplace.
Absolutely.
Not just that very narrow, strict, anal retentive person that fits the job description or the comfort zone of the leadership.
Right.
You know, we've got to be able to allow a lot more from our people, and that's the bottom line.
Absolutely. And Daniel Goleman even states that the most successful people are not the people who have just the intellect. Yes, that's important, but the people who have proven to be very bright emotionally are the ones that change the world with business, change the world everywhere. So to pretend that we don't have these emotions and how they affect us and each other is a detriment. So I agree with you. It needs to be spoken, and I'm glad you're calling that out to leaders. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And for those of you that are watching and listening to this, I hope that the stuff that Debra and I have explained to you in this short time has been really helpful. And there's so much information out there. You can Google it and find articles. You can read books. So I know Daniel Goleman is the man. He started this. He coined the term. But what he's also done is he's inspired another generation of thinkers on this. So are there other people besides Daniel Goleman that you're aware of, Debra, that people should look up?
That is a good question. I'm just trying, you caught me off guard and my brain's not working right at that moment.
If you don't know, I don't know either, so we're on the same page.
There is another, well, I'm curious, I mentioned this to you earlier, and it came up to me as we're speaking about you and customer service and how you like to have the response on the other side if you're the client, the customer, and how Zappos has done over the years such a great job in serving people. And I know recently, I haven't read this, and I would like to follow up with you on this, is there's a change going on there and how they organize their company, which has been hugely successful because they put their team, their people first. I would like to find out what response is going on there. But no, I have to say I'm not, I can't speak for that right now. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Well, and just to kind of to wrap up with that thought is, maybe you don't know a lot of authors out there in addition to Daniel Goleman, but my guess is, as we've been talking here, the names of people in your life have been coming to mind. That, oh yeah, this person's really understanding. Or I remember this guy I talked to, he really got it. It's important to not only look to the experts of the written word and the books, look to the people in your own life. Now, the people that are around you that you can model and ask questions of them. You know, how did you know to say that? Or what made you do that just now? Where'd that come from? Get a little instruction in emotional intelligence from the people that are there for you already. Now, the best instruction is role modeling. Yes. So do the research and up your game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The leaders are going to be the ones that can really inspire people, motivate them, stir their passions, and get them behind a common cause. You can't do that with fear.
No.
You know, maybe the politicians like to think so, but in the business world, you're going to get a heck of a lot more from people if they're excited and enthusiastic and they care about you as the leader because they know you care about them.
I would
happen, you can do some great things.
I absolutely agree with that, and that I encourage people to look at companies they admire or people that they admire who have gone ahead of them and see what kind of person they are, how they interacted with people, how they managed their life, how they modeled being emotionally intelligent. That's a great place to start too. People living it. Mm-hmm.
So read some books, read some articles, meet some people, allow yourself to be the full human being that you are and see just how much more richness that brings to your life, your business, your relationships by being smarter, more emotionally intelligent. I'm Brian King. This has been Debra Sunderland. Please look us up online as well. Send us any questions you have about what we've just been talking about, and feel free to make suggestions on what else you would like us to talk about. So in the meantime, have an awesome day, Debra, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you.